But it's rare. It's rare that a filmmaker can find success and remain rare. You know, it's truly beautiful when a filmmaker finds success, and the big success is to remain strange. And I think that's to be celebrated. But one of the things that is incredibly impressive about Memento is, well, it's aged fabulously, but the language of it, much like Borges, who, like Stevenson, they are both incredibly precise writers. This is written filmically in an incredibly precise way. It's actually daunting to think this is your second feature. It's scary, and I kind of hate you. So, just for me to take notes. Can you tell me how, because it's a film that is full of emotion. That's all the films you do are incredibly precise, but full with emotion. So does your process include an incredible planning on the formal part of the movie, and then you find freedom with the actors?
I think for me, the writing process is a combination of attacking it from two different sides. I'll draw diagrams, I'll plan, I'll think about it, but then I try and write from the inside. And I write with Memento. I started on page 1 and I finished on page 120, whatever. I always wrote in order, and generally what I do is I write to the point where I get stuck, and I go back to the beginning and I rewrite as I go. So the first draft tends to be fairly finished. It's usually over long, but it tends to be very, very close to what it is I want to then go and film. But as far as the emotionalism goes, I really believe, and I've talked about this in the past, but I really believe in the case of Memento, I think it was very much Guy Pearce's performance that opened the film up emotionally for people. I think that when I wrote it in a very cold way. I wrote it as a puzzle. I was interested in the puzzle. And then we came to make it, likewise, and it was more in a distant way. And what Guy brought to it is he took on the challenge of not treating it as a puzzle, but treating Leonard as a man and his emotions and what would the reality of that situation be. And so in doing that, he just opened up the truth of that situation for an audience. And I had, in trying to be clever in a sense, and I sort of grasped at these tropes from film noir, crime fiction, and Jim Thompson, things like that. But I had done it, I think, in a quite intellectual way, if you like. What Guy did is he made it emotional for an audience. And that opened the film up in a way that I valued tremendously. And it changed the way I write. So when I wrote Conception, for example, I did write from a much more emotional point of view because I realised that that's really what the audience connects with in the immediate moment of the images passing before them, and that the structural ideas, the sort of superstructure of things, has a different role and different strengths.
So a guy is an incredibly exacting actor. He's not a guy that is content with the briefest explanation. He likes to delve into it. He really likes to know. He likes to know exactly what's behind something, especially if you've written the script yourself. And I found that invigorating because Memento was a complex and confusing script for a lot of people, but the precision with which he would analyse it, he would ask me questions, really, he became an incredible logic filter on the piece and really ensured that it held together as well as it could. He's a guy that is restless until he finds the truth.
Yes.
I mean, he is truly, genuinely restless with himself unless he knows.
I think the best actors are. I think the best actors like Guy and many others have worked with, Christian and so many others, they are restless. I think it's a very good way of putting it. They're looking for something, and they're looking for the truth of the character and the central truths of that. And until they can pin that down, they are just searching and searching. And then even while they're shooting, sometimes they are as well. But when they find it, it's a wonderful thing to watch an actor just settle into that.
Yes, and he, you were talking about the real emotion. What is beautiful about, I think if you find a unifying thing in your films, is that they are very much incredibly complex labyrinthian journeys, in many cases, of lonely characters that stand alone. And they go through that labyrinthian journey in a beautifully, you said, it's almost visual, a very diagrammatic way, like a Mobius strip or the impossible staircase in Inception is almost like a creation of impossible perspectives meeting mathematically at a point where they become a film. But what is great is emotionally the movies are real. And this is, however, they are emotionally real in works of genre. Like I always say, there will always be something in me that will always be pulp. And there's something, I mean, the movie works, but it doesn't pretend to be a reality. It doesn't try, it tries to be truthful with the emotions, but he is the best tattooing insurance agent I've ever met. He's truly a fabulous tattoo artist. And you can, but the reality is, I think that there is a tone wisdom in finding people like Joey Pants and putting him in there, because he in himself is a big, huge question mark about his integrity. And it works. I wanted to ask you about this. It works deeply in the noir genre, because one of the things is unreliability. And because of his disease, everything is unreliable in the movie.
Well, certainly the unreliable narrator, particularly in noir, I think is something we're fascinated by. And finding a character, creating a character who is by definition unreliable, is fooling himself that he's not. And so you're kind of peeling him away through the film. It was really fascinating to me. One of the things I enjoyed shooting the most was there's a moment where he's in Carrie Agnos's house and he's got his set of files with a big rubber band around, very much like a rubber band, that's the thick one they found, the proper quality. And so he pulls it off and he's got all these files. And what we did with the cameras, we just gradually changed the elevation of it to reflect a shifting point of view. And it's the one time in the film where you really sort of see him from outside, and you see her you see him from her point of view. And he's just this self-delusional guy. He's a guy who can't possibly perform this investigation, who can't possibly succeed. And there's something, I think there's a lot of pathos in that. I enjoyed that moment and shifting that point of view.
But the revelations, I mean, everything is, you talk about very literary resource that Nabokov uses beautifully and Noir uses beautifully, which is the unreliable narrator. But if you pull back a little bit, actually that central character is unreliable, but the narrator, which in this case would be you, has to be incredibly reliable. The movie is constructed in such a way that you don't find the usual wait a moment. Moments after the moment. You cannot cheat.
No, you couldn't cheat. When you take a structure like this, and Inception is very much the same, when you're demanding of the audience that they engage with this game in a way, with this puzzle, it's very important that you're not cheating. And I think it's also very important that you provide answers. And there are plenty of ambiguities in the film, but the ambiguities themselves are answers, I suppose, is the way to put it best. That it's very clear to the audience the things that they can't know, in a sense. And I think that is an important part of it. Is, the narrator is indeed unreliable, but you have to feel there's an authority behind the film that knows what's going on. And indeed, I have a very precise interpretation of everything in the film that was constructed according to that. When we first went to film festivals with it, I would happily explain that. And at Venice, my brother came up to me afterwards and he said, "You can't do that." I said, "Brother, why not?" And he said, he made a point. He said, you made a film where it's ambiguous at the end, specifically because you're in the point of view, you're in the head of a guy who can't know the truth. And so the audience doesn't know the truth at the end. And if you tell people what, as the creator, that truth is, you're actually violating the terms of the story. And will make much more money if you don't tell people.